Chapter 282. Leave no one behind. Father, this is the blood infant pill. White-haired Zhonglai said in a deep voice. What? Zhong Tianhao cried out in shock. Looking at the white-haired father in front of him, he finally understood why the other party had ended up in such a state. Blood infant pill, a magical elixir that could allow a Jidan stage cultivator to directly promote to the Yuanying stage. Its magic was more than simply promoting to the Yuanying stage. This kind of elixir was very convenient and concise, as almost every Yuanying stage cultivator would refine it. However, in the cultivation world, other than some unforgivable devils of the Devil Dao, very few people were willing to refine the blood infant pill. Because the material for refining a blood infant dan is the Yuanying stage cultivator's Yuanying. To put it simply, if you want to refine a blood infant dan, you have to pay a Yuanying stage cultivator as the price. Devil's Way cultivators would often capture some cultivators to refine the blood infant pill. But in the righteous way, no one dared to do so, because it would be hunted down and killed by all the righteous way cultivators. Zhonglai didn't dare to do it either. This blood infant pill, he had used his own Yuanying to refine it. Father, why are you doing this? Zhong Tianhao said with a puzzled face. He didn't believe that his father was only doing this so that he could advance to the Yuanying stage, because with his talent, he could completely break through the Yuanying stage in a few more decades, and there was no need for Zhonglai to sacrifice himself like this. Do you remember Zhong Wanshan? Zhonglai suddenly asked. Third Elder. Hasn't he been dead for more than a decade? I remember this, or you told me. You said that he went to the forest of demonic beasts to explore the spirit mines for the clan, and was surrounded by several Yuanying stage demonic beasts and died. Zhong Tianhao was even more puzzled when he heard this. Why did his father suddenly mention the third elder, who had died many years ago? Zhonglai smiled to himself. He did sacrifice himself for the family, but not in the forest of demonic beasts, but died at the hands of Kangchon. How is this possible? Zhong Tianhao was instantly stunned. A trace of regret appeared on Zhongli's face as he sighed. Back then, the Li family had sent me a letter that as long as I killed Kangchon, their Li family would support my Zhong family's sole domination of Demon Yuan City. My heart was moved, so I dispatched the third elder to assassinate Kangchon. Only I didn't realize that we all underestimated Kangchon. Zhong Tianhao was struck by lightning. He understood everything at once. Number Wonder Kangchon had just come back this time and sought revenge on their Zhong family. In his place, he would have taken revenge as well. However, he didn't blame Zhonglai. His father was also doing it for the sake of the Zhong family. It was just that they had all underestimated Kangchon. Who could have expected that Kangchon, who was only at the foundation establishment stage at that time, would be able to kill a Yuanying stage powerhouse, worthy of being an overlord? This is one of the most regrettable things that my father has done in his life. Zhonglai sighed, then looked deeply at Zhong Tianhao and said in a deep voice, How you acted in a maniacal and overbearing manner, and in the eyes of outsiders, you are courageous, but not resourceful. But my father knows deep down that you are deliberately doing this for the world to see, in order to make others underestimate you. Zhong Tianhao was stunned at his words, but did not retort. His father had been secretly watching all these years, and was naturally clear about his temperament. Of course, he had no intention of hiding it from his father. Zhonglai looked at his son with relief, feeling that the Zhong family would definitely have a day to shine in his hands. Since Overlord didn't kill me this time, it means that this matter has been resolved. Zhonglai continued, his face full of seriousness as he gazed at Zhong Tianhao, saying, In the future, you shall not take revenge, and our Zhong family shall completely forget about this matter. He was well aware that the current Kangchon was no longer something that their Zhong family could mess with, and even less so in the future. Kangchon had already grown to a point that was beyond their reach. Father, don't worry. Zhong Tianhao's face straightened as he said in a deep voice, "I will gather all the Zhong family's children later, and we will leave Demon Yuan City tomorrow." Zhonglai nodded his head in relief. A huge stone in his heart had finally been put down. He could leave with peace of mind. In an inn not far from the Zhong mansion, Kang Chon withdrew his out-of-body divine thoughts, and his eyes slowly opened as he softly said, "So that's how it is." "Brother, what's wrong?" Little Gold said suspiciously. Kang Chon immediately told Xiao Jin the information he had probed with his out-of-body divine thoughts. Xiao Jin sighed after hearing it. He smiled and said, counting on him to know what's good for him. "But brother, you're just going to let the Zhong family off like this? After refining the blood infant Dan, Zhonglai is dead. My revenge has been avenged. And having the Zhong family withdraw from Demon Yuan City is considered a severe punishment for them." Kang Chon said indifferently. People died and grievances were cancelled out. The mistake Zhonglai made back then. He had already suffered a severe punishment. Kang Chon didn't want to drive them to extinction again. Of course, if the Zhong family still had the desire to take revenge, then he wouldn't mind killing on a grand scale. It was good to see that the Zhong family was sensible. "Brother, since the Zhong family's matter is settled, shall we head to the imperial capital now?" Little Gold asked. "I'm afraid we'll have to wait a little while. Two old friends are here." Kang Chon smiled faintly at his words. Then he beckoned. The door of the house opened automatically, and a pair of people outside the door walked slowly. "Brother Kang Tian, Brother Kang Tian." The ones who came in were two youths, a man and a woman. The man was handsome and graceful, and the woman was a beautiful and stunning heavenly beauty. "Brother Zhou, Miss Yun." "No, it should be Mrs. Zhou. Long time no see." Seeing the familiar faces of yesteryear, Kang Tian couldn't help but reveal a smile. This man and woman were none other than Zhou Yunji and Yun Shuyan, who had tied the knot and become husband and wife. As for the Zhou family, it also relied on this relationship, and with the help of the Yun family, became the fourth largest family in Demon Yuan City. In the hearts of the crowd of cultivators in Demon Yuan City, Zhou Yunji and Yun Shuya were completely talented, and a natural pair, and their union was a beautiful story in Demon Yuan City. Worthy of being the overlord, you have stirred up the entire Demon Yuan City as soon as you arrived. I heard that the Zhong family has been driven out of Demon Yuan City by you. This is good news for our Zhou and Yun families. Thank you very much." Zhou Yunji smiled like a spring breeze, looking at the pale sky in front of him with emotion. The people of his peers back then had now become an existence that he looked up to. Yun Shuiru on the side had an odd expression on his face. His eyes no longer filled with strange colors as he looked at Kang Chon, but rather a hint of a sigh amidst the blandness. Back then, when the Heavenly Tao Sect's disciple acceptance ceremony opened, she also went to participate. Unfortunately, her strength was limited, and soon after she entered the Heavenly Tao Demon Ceiling ranking, she suffered danger. Unfortunately, Zhou Yunji, who had been secretly following her, fought to the death to protect her, and only then did she return safely. However, for this reason, Zhou Yunji had one of his arms bitten off by a demonic beast, which could be seen from his empty sleeve. Kang Tian noticed immediately, and he frowned. "Brother Zhou, your arm. It seems like it was bitten off by a demonic beast. The wound has a kind of toxin, although it's not fatal. It makes it impossible for him to recover this arm." On the side, Xiao Jin said in a deep voice. He knew the most about demonic beasts. Zhou Yunji tenderly glanced at Yun Shuiru by his side and softly said, "An arm in exchange for a beloved. I have no complaints or regrets." Yun Shuiru's face was filled with emotion. Then she looked at Kang Chon pleadingly and said eagerly, "Big brother Kang Chon, you were the most powerful. Please help Yunji. This kind of toxin is not good to be detoxified." Xiao Jin shook his head. "It's not a problem. I'm already used to it." Zhou Yunji smiled and shook his head. Yun Shuiru, on the other hand, looked at Kang Chon with a face full of hope. In her impression, Kang Chon had always been an omnipotent existence. This worship used to make her think that she liked Kang Chon, but later on, she realized that it was just worship. "Don't worry, I can cure this poison." Kang Chon gave Yun Shuiru a reassuring smile as he pointed a finger at the place where Zhou Yunji's broken arm was. And then a black liquid, along with his finger, flowed out from the place where Zhou Yunji's broken arm was and spilled onto the ground. Snorting. Immediately, the ground emitted a snorting sound. The black liquid was full of corrosiveness, causing the ground to cave in partially. When Yun Shuiyao saw this, she was filled with joy. "When you advance to the yuanying stage, you will be able to recover this arm," Kang Chon said with a smile. This poison was indeed difficult to solve. If it was someone else, even a strong person at the outbreathing stage might not be able to solve it, and he had used the star-absorbing technique to suck out the toxin. "Brother, you're awesome. You can think of this too." On the side, Xiaojin looked at Kang Chon with a face full of admiration. He naturally knew that Kang Chon had used the star-absorbing grand technique just now, and in his heart, he very much admired Kang Chon's mind, that he could even think of this. "Many thanks to Brother Kang Chon," Zhou Yunji said with a face full of gratitude. It's just a small matter. It's not enough." Kang Chon shook his head and laughed. Zhou Yunji and Yun Shuiru. These two people he looked at more favorably, and he didn't mind helping out a little bit, not to mention, it was just a show of hands. A few people immediately sat down and talked freely, from the mouths of Zhou Yunji and his wife. Kang Chon learnt about quite a few things that had happened in the Great Tang country over the years. "Brother Kang Chon, I'm afraid you've just returned to the Great Tang country and haven't gone to the imperial capital yet, right?" Half a second later, Zhou Yunji suddenly asked. "Well, I did just return. What's wrong?" Kang Chon was filled with doubt. Zhou Yunji and Yun Shuiru by his side exchanged a glance, then said in a deep voice, 3 years ago, Li Yuanba and Li Chongjiao came back from the Heavenly Dao sect, and at that time, Li Yuanba was about to kill your maternal grandfather." Boom. Before Zhou Yunji could finish speaking, Kang Chon was already furious, and the power in his hands couldn't help but explode, shattering a nearby table. "What? Li Yuanba dared to kill my grandfather?" Kang Chon's eyes were red and filled with a murderous aura. In his heart, his maternal grandfather was his only closest relative, his scales. Little Jin on the side was also filled with rage as he roared, "Brother, let's destroy the Li family to take revenge." "You guys calm down first, your grandfather is not dead." Seeing this, Zhou Yunji hurriedly shouted. Kang Chon frowned and looked at Zhou Yunji. This guy didn't finish his words and almost scared him to death. He also didn't think about who had just interrupted the other party. Zhou Yunji continued, "Brother Kang Chon, don't worry, your grandfather is fine now." At the critical moment, the Jin family's supreme elder and the state's lord stepped in to stop Li Yuanba. Kang Chon was relieved when he heard this. As long as his grandpa is fine now, he is relieved. As for Li Yuanba, humph, this time you can't let him off by any means. But your grandpa is having a hard time right now. Li Yuanba often threatens your grandpa. As long as he dares to come out and walk around, he will break his legs. Zhou Yunji didn't finish his sentence. The heavens once again flared up in anger. Thousands of meters above in the air, two figures stepped into the air, heading in the direction of the imperial capital. They were Kang Chon and Xiaojin, who had left Demon Yuan City. After learning about what had happened to his grandfather from Zhou Yunji and his wife, Kang Chon's heart had long been boiling with rage, and he couldn't wait to return to the imperial capital to teach that Li family a lesson. From the time he stepped into the cultivation world, this Li family had been working against him. Not only did they let Li Yuanba deal with him openly, but they also secretly used Zhonglai to assassinate him. All this hatred was enough to make Kang Chon's heart move to kill. More importantly, this time, Li Yuanba had gone too far, as the same Heavenly Tao sect disciple. The other party dared to not put him in his eyes at all, and wanted to kill his grandfather. This time, he could not tolerate it no matter what he said. "Brother, are we going to destroy the Li family this time?" Little Gold asked in a deep voice, a fierce light flashing in his eyes. Kang Chon looked at Xiaojin, shook his head, and calmly said, "The Heavenly Tao sect prohibits fellow disciples from killing each other. Otherwise, even if I'm a disciple of the law enforcement elder, I'll still be punished." Although he was angry in his heart, he was not overwhelmed by anger. "Kid, you are right." Emperor Dan's pleased voice came out as he continued, with the righteous character of the elder of law enforcement. "If you dare to kill a disciple of the Heavenly Tao sect, he will absolutely kill you in a big way. So you have to deal with this matter calmly.